Have you ever found that it takes a lot more air to tongue a phrase than it does to slur it? In this video, we'll look at why that can be and how to fix it. Hi, Brian from Airflow Music here. Welcome back to another video. This one, like I said, this is about tonguing and really trying to make sure that we get a little more efficient with our tonguing so that we don't run out of gas, so to speak. And actually I mean that both figuratively and literally. It came up particularly because of a question there was in the comments, and also something that came up in a lesson with somebody the other day, where they were experiencing playing tonguing exercises and finding that they ran out of air with it very quickly, much more so than if they were slurring something. And so this is something that's worth touching on because it's something that does hold people up a little bit, and I've made tonguing videos about these sort of topics in the past, but also, you know, it's been a couple of years and my way of thinking about it has progressed slightly. Got a couple of slightly different ideas and a couple of slightly different approaches. So something that's worth talking about and sharing in this one. Before we get into that, I just wanted to thank you all for being here and looking at this. I checked the subs the other day for the first time in a long time and realised that there's over 14,500 of you subscribed to the channel now, which is fantastic. Thank you for that. That's awesome. And also I wanted to take a second and just welcome any of you who've joined us since the Trumpet Guru's Hang podcast episode that I did a couple of weeks ago. I know some people have come along from there. And so, once again, welcome. And hope you'll find some stuff of interest here on the channel. Okay? If you haven't seen that episode of the podcast, I was kind of pleased with how that came out. So I'll link that down below so you can go check it out if you haven't seen it already. Anyway, let's get into the topic of the video. Like I say, we're trying to avoid using too much air as we tongue. And there's a couple of reasons that this happens, but principally, I think we tend to get confused about what we're doing with our tongue and what we should be kind of focusing on to get it to happen. And we tend to overcomplicate these things. It really needn't be any more complicated than when we speak. If I sit here and I say ta 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 ta, that's easy to do. And it's right there, and it's the same stuff that I need to do when I'm playing. The same thing happens. The tongue moves in and out of the airstream, and you know, we end up with a situation where you get that sibilant, that syllable that happens, breaks the airstream, and that's what you experience as that consonant, the T consonant. Similar thing happens with D, da, d, for a slightly softer tongue, da 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 da, or ta 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 ta. But really it needn't be any more complicated than that, and we tend to get a little bit thrown off, I think, because of reading these things in books like the Arbon book and things like that, where very often, you know, the articulation pattern for an exercise will be written out as tu 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 tu, tu for tu. And it's very easy without talking to somebody about this to kind of misread or misunderstand what that vowel shape is intended to convey. You see people's comments about this saying, well, because it's French, it's this way. Either way, however you want to shape that, it comes down to the fact that what we need to do is have a nice crisp consonant on the front, and to keep the vowel of what we're saying fairly short, particularly if we want to make the tonguing go fast. We have to have a fast single tongue or a fast double tongue. Now, the tendency is within that, if we're just reading it and we don't have anyone to tell us what it's supposed to be or explain it to us, and we're just reading that from the book, it's easy to read that tu and think that we've got to go tu, tu. That's fine as well, but that longer vowel, or even a ta, as I've advocated before, which I still think is good for very lyrical playing, a da or a ta, but generally now I'm leaning towards a shorter vowel sound. Okay, because it helps it keep everything moving along a little more smoothly. We really don't need to make it any more complicated than that. Still the same approach I've been using all along, which is that we just need to move the tongue in and out of the airstream. We don't need to blow every time. It's tempting to do that, particularly if we're thinking of a long vowel sound. Tu, tu. In fact, we don't even need any air at all to get the sound out of that. If I just say ta, ta, without actually speaking it, you can hear, if I get a little close to the mic and we get a little ASMR thing going here, you can hear me go. At that point, I'm not blowing anything. That's just the click of the release of that air, just from my tongue moving in my mouth. I'll make sure to turn that up nice and loud in the mix so you can really hear what that sounds like. Try it for yourself. You can do that same thing. Now that's what we have to do while we're having the air already pressurized to play our note. So we don't need to blow extra for each one. Now, if we were to put a hand up in front of the mouth and tongue towards it and say, you'll feel the start and stop of the air for sure. But the important thing is to try and make sure that the air is just in play. It's already moving and we're not blowing extra each time we tongue. Okay? So we're just going. The air's already going and I'm adding the tongue to it. The thing that makes it use up a lot of air is blowing extra every time. So we have to practice that, get it in isolation, just get the tongue into the airstream to make that articulation. So we start it already, we go just moving the tongue with the existing air. If we're at the start of a phrase, we just got to place the air in the right place behind the closed tongue, so the tongue's already in position in order to release and make the note. Doesn't need to be any more complicated than that, okay? Here's something you can practice to make sure that you're kind of doing this. And so obviously we know, that playing something for a long time, let's take a long tone as an example. We know, if you've seen my previous videos about long tones, the last video was about long tones. It's, no great problem if you practice them and you're getting used to doing it to hold a long tone for 30 seconds. I can hold that out perfectly happily for 30 seconds, particularly in the middle register. Not a problem at all. What can be a struggle if you're blowing every time is tonguing a series of 16th notes or semiquavers for that same 30 seconds continuously. So that's something that's worth practicing. It would sound something like this. I'll do the same thing. Set the metronome going in 5/4 as I like to when I'm doing 30-second long tones. If you've seen my long tone videos, you know about that already. And this time I'll tongue 6 or even more bars in 5 of 16th notes. Okay? I'm just going at a slow tempo. This is at 60 BPM. Not trying to do anything too complicated or do anything too quickly, but just as a proof of concept that it can be done, and also it's something that you can practice for yourself to get used to really tonguing very gently, just moving the tongue in the airstream and keeping that as continuous as if you were playing a long tone. So let's do just that. It goes like this. Okay, so that's something, as you can see, I think I went even longer than 30 seconds there. Okay, it may even have been 35 before I then came to a hold note. So it's doable once you get your breathing under control and you get your breath support in place and your chest up and all of that good stuff that we need to do to play anything. To then just keep that moving and just get that in the existing airstream, just to make that happen nice and crisply. Okay. Now, if you're looking for something, a bit more of a musical example to help you practice stretching this out, then a really good one is the start of the first Urban Characteristic Study. Probably many of you will be familiar with this piece, and you'll know that what you need to do to play it most effectively is be able to get through the first 12 bars in a single breath. There's a spot or two you could potentially breathe in there, but to really keep the phrase going and make it the easiest way possible, you need to get through that in one breath. And in fact, on the da capo, you need to get through 13 bars in one breath, because you need the last bar at the bottom of the page, then those first 12 bars. So what I like to practice to make sure that I'm tonguing that nice and cleanly without any extra overblowing of the air, being nice and efficient with it, is practice getting through that first 12 bars until I can do that in one breath at 60 BPM. If you keep that tongue nice and gentle and don't overblow, play nice and softly, even though it can be a challenge at first, it's perfectly doable. If you don't believe me, here it is. You can play along with me. This is the first 12 bars of the first Urban Characteristic Study at 60 beats a minute, one breath. So there's something useful, even though it's challenging, that we can all practice and try to get to grips with. The more that you can be just gentle in your approach, even though you're playing slowly, try and play everything you would play, all your articulations, all your slurring, the trills even and stuff like that. I'm kind of doing them slowly so I can play them the same way when I'm going up to tempo. You know, the tempo on there is going to be somewhere approaching 100 beats a minute. Something like that for an allegro moderato. So it's a challenge in itself to get through at 60, but it will give you what you need to play a lot of those things and then be able to get it up to speed and play it more quickly. Okay? And particularly if you can get it at 60 beats a minute in one breath, those first 12 bars, then it's no problem to do it at 95, 100 beats a minute where you'll actually play the piece. Okay? So just something to check out and practice. Anyway, that's plenty for this one. I just wanted to stop in and talk about this for a few minutes. I'll be back with another video very soon. I'm intending to go pretty much daily. And in fact, what do you say? Should we get into some kind of daily practice for 30 days or something, like with the 30 days of long tones? Something different to that? Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you're up for that. I have a feeling that might be a good thing for all of us, to get me back into making videos regularly and to give you all something to practice along with and work on some stuff. So if you've got suggestions for what you might like to cover with that, I have some ideas, but you know, I'd like to hear them. Let me know what you're interested in working on and we'll see what we can put together. Other than that, my intention is to be here at least a few times a week for the next little while my touring schedule is quiet. So I'll be seeing you for these videos very much more often than has been the case lately. Other than that, if you found this helpful, please do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments about this in particular or anything else that you'd like me to make a video about, please do leave it down below. Let's get that conversation going again and try and make this as useful as possible for all of you. That's it for this one. I will see you again with another video very soon. And in the meantime, you know what to do. Go practice.